Good evening and welcome to class. Tonight we're going to cover chapter 4. We're going to give it a few more minutes before everybody to get here. And please remember that if you have any questions during class, you need to text me. I've posted my cell phone number in the syllabus and online in the classroom. I will not be posting it on YouTube. That is not a smart thing to do. But we will be starting here in just one more minute and talking about chapter 4. So please hang in there with us as we get started. So, all right, chapter 4, requirements engineering. So after this chapter, you'll be able to explain the requirements and challenges that you see in an engineering process. You will be able to compare and contrast what you consider and others would consider functional requirements and non-functional requirements. You'd be able to apply team-based requirements for engineering techniques, including JAD and RAD, or Joint Application Development, and Rapid Application Development. And you'd also be able to identify agile methodologies. You will be able to, after this class, be able to develop fact-finding plans for gathering requirements, conduct interviews, use other requirements gathering techniques, including document reviews, observation questionnaires, numerous other options, and then you'll be able to explain those to other people. Pardon me. You'll also be able to talk about how you can utilize those and teach others, hopefully, about when you're gathering that information. Pretty much when you're gathering the information in the beginning of a project, how you would do that. And then learn how to document it and what tools and software is available. So, system requirements. Now, in the beginning of any system project, you have to, excuse me, you have to ask 1,000 questions. You have to document it. You have to include stakeholders of that system or company to find out what needs to be done, what needs to occur. And as you are doing this, there are numerous ways and acceptable methodologies to be able to gain this information. There are ways that are considered acceptable that are proven methods in an agile or a waterfall project management methodology, so that it gives inclusivity for all areas of upper, middle, and lower management, as well as end users that end up becoming your SMEs or your subject matter experts. And the reason that's important is because when people take the time in these interviews or in using these questionnaires or putting their time and effort into these projects, they've now made an investment of time, and they're looking for quality. And that means they have some ownership in the project as well. And you want to show them that the benefit that they're looking for, you gained a benefit from them and their information. And so their ownership as well, or they're going to see their ownership, see the quality they put into it, and get something out of it as well. Okay? So you have to be... jumped ahead of myself. You have to be prepared to spend quality time. Remember, I said quality, okay? There are different methods to be able to gather this data, gather this information. Now, there's a lot of information you're going to gather that's not useful. There are going to be people that you're going to talk to in these organizations that are just going to want to complain. Their information is not qualitative or quantitative, not qualitative or quantitative, is not quality data, okay? And they're not there to put ownership in the system. They're just there to complain, okay? And you're going to deal with that as a project manager. And you have to be prepared for that. And you have to be patient when it comes to that. Because even though they're there to complain, you need to learn to listen and cut through that fluff pardon me. Sorry, I thought the system had stopped recording. You have to be prepared to find the value, find the hidden jewel in the fluff that they leave you with. So you need to validate and verify what you're looking for in your project by talking to the upper and executive managements. I would suggest that that's critical to do first. Of course, anybody that's worked on projects will tell you that that is something you need to do. You need to identify the scope of your project first. Get it in writing and get it signed so that you're not going to deal with a lot of scope creep. Then start identifying the minutia, the little bits as you go through and fleshing out how you're actually going to get it done. Okay, now as you're fleshing out the rest of it, you've got to talk about scale and security and total cost. Remember, last week we talked about the Iron Cross. We talked about the 3 different aspects of a project that one cannot increase without the other 2 being affected. So if time increases, cost increases as well. So does scope, okay? You cannot have one increase without it crucially affecting the other, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about some team-based techniques. So you have joint application design. So this is a neat, it's kind of a neat way to look at this. Joint application design. You bring your users in early. You have active roles. It's formal or informal, but your participants and roles, you do have a project leader, okay? And you can have multiple members on this team, okay? So let's look at the advantages and the disadvantages. Let's start with the advantages, right? It can have efficiency when you have key individuals participating. So remember I said that when you have somebody that is pouring good quality information, good quality time, wanting to have ownership in a project, then yeah, they can be effective, right? And you're going to see that ownership pay in dividends. And you're going to produce a very accurate system with good achievables and milestones, and you're going to meet that very quickly. The disadvantage, it's expensive, and it's traditional in its methodology, can become cumbersome. okay, if you start making it too large. The problem is when you start becoming successful in a project like this, a lot of people see its success, see how well it's doing, and you may have some, you may have some folks that are like, hey, I kind of like to get involved with that. And you have to be ready to say, no, we're good. We've got everybody we need. Okay. Now, RAD, Rapid Application Development, it uses a group approach like JAD. Okay. So you do have groups. Like JAD also does use groups, but its end project is a new IS, right? So unlike JAD, where you are developing new processes and your involvement is a formal or informal role in a project, your rapid application development, no, you're getting a new IS system as well. It's just this could be for a business process. This could be for a, but again, they could both be for a new information system. So don't let that confuse you. Rapid application development is a complete methodology. It has 4 phases of a life cycle, which means it goes from, testing and design all the way through development to, it goes from design to production to testing to release to service, to the users and to the service desk. So it has those life cycle phases. It's a reduction in cost and development time because, again, it's rapid. And it increases probability of success, relies on prototyping. So this is neat because what it'll do is you go through the rapid application design phase multiple times, and you just keep trucking through those 4 phases until you get a usable prototype, and then you move forward. So it is a neat process. I don't know if you can read this very well. I hope you can. I'm sorry if it's too small to read. Let me go back here. I'm looking for my cursor. I want to make this bigger. Yeah, you should be able to see it. Okay. So this is a good graphical representation of rapid application design. So you got requirements planning, user design, construction, and cut over to support. So again, like I was saying, those 4 phases. Okay. So you have, as you're going through the critical path, you have an area that you just sit there and cycle through until you get a good workable solution, and then you move on to cut over. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay. Well, hopefully I didn't just mess up the stream. Hopefully it looks fine. Okay. So the disadvantages or the advantages of RAD is it's faster. Okay, that is the advantage of it. The disadvantages is that it doesn't emphasize on a very strategic business need, and it does take less time to develop quality, consistency, and design standards. So yeah, you're going to get it quick, but when you get something built quick, it doesn't always come out quality. Okay, now the Agile methodology. Agile is a new method that is definitely becoming more and more popular. I'm seeing it more and more in my career over the last 5 years as well. You build systems incrementally by building a series of prototypes and testing out the wazoo. I mean, you test and test and test, and you revise, extend, and merge. Continuous feedback from the users, and it is a partnership. So this incremental development and prototyping really gets a lot of buy-in from the users. They really like this type of methodology, and it is really becoming so popular, in especially from an IT perspective, because it is, like I said, it's a partnership based methodology more than anything. So takes a lot of communication, a lot of documentation, and the thing is, it takes patience, especially when you're dealing with people that know what they need but may not know the technical side of things. So you need somebody that's good at translating technology to end user. And if an end user doesn't know how to say, this is what I need it to do, but may not know if it's even possible. So you have to be prepared for that. So a Scrum session. This is technically just a meeting where you can emphasize your time and what you've been doing. It's a activities meeting. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's the deliverables that I'm hoping to achieve. The advantages. It's very flexible. When you're dealing with change, frequent deliverables, constant validation in the product, and you reduce a lot of risk. Okay. Disadvantages. Your team members need a lot of high level of technical and interpersonal skills. Like I was saying, the lack of structure and documentation can introduce risk. You've got to document. That is something that people are learning. Your documentation that you're looking for is built by you. There's no documentation for you. When you're developing this way, you build the documentation. Keep telling my students all the time, I'm like, if you're looking for an enterprise relationship diagram, guess what? You got to build it. If you're looking for that, the table that has all your data in it, build it. It's your responsibility. And if you're in the process of working through one of these projects and you realize that this is going to incur dramatic cost and the company cannot afford it, and it would not be ethically responsible to continue the project, then these projects have been known to get reworked and the scope get changed dramatically, because it's better to change the scope of the project than to financially damage the company. So let's talk about gathering requirements. You're going to hear a lot about the W's, even though there's an H in there. It's the questions, the elicitation or fact-finding, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Okay? So you're going to want to know all of these things and to learn as much as you can about your needs in this interviews or these questionnaires or these fact-finding mission that you're going to be working through. Most of the time when it's a large project, you're going to conduct interviews. Depending on how large of an impact the project may have, you may conduct interviews with the majority of the staff. Okay? And you're going to need to determine who you're going to interview, how it's going to be performed. Is it going to be on a website? Are you going to do it face-to-face? How are you going to score the results of the questions? Are these going to be open-ended questions? Are they going to be Boolean-style questions? True, false, yes, no? How are you going to work it? Do you need qualitative or do you need quantitative data? There's a lot to cover on these. Okay. So when you're determining the type of people to ask or to interview, you've got to consider what your candidates do. If the candidates that you're getting lined up in front of you by the company have nothing to do with the software that you're being asked to revamp, question that. They're not going to have a clue of how to answer you on the questions you're going to need to answer. Now, if the company's lining people up for you and all of them use the system daily, all day long, then yeah, they really want to get this fixed. Okay. Establish objectives for the interview. Exactly. Build your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? What information do you need? If you've never built an interview, if you've never worked questionnaires, if you've never worked interviews and trying to figure out how you're going to get this data, be prepared for some very nervous people. Anytime an organization brings in people to ask them questions about anything, the first thing they're going to want to know is, are you with human resources and am I getting fired? It's inevitable. It's human nature. And you've got to overcome that hurdle, and they're not going to trust you. Is this anonymous? Will you keep the information I'm giving you private? Yes. They're not going to believe you. So you've got a large hill to climb. And as you're developing these questions, you got to make sure you're not leading the users and trying to get them to your answers. You need to leave them open-ended. Okay? The less yes, no, and true, false questions you can do, I would try to do none. But the more open-ended questions that aren't leading, the better. You'll get proper answers that way. Even if it's answers that are going to shut your project down, at least you'll know. Okay. Now, on your interviews, you need to keep the time frame to to right around an hour. I say less than an hour. Keep the pace and the place the same. Keep the consistency at the same pace. Do not get monotonous. Don't fall into a cadence. Keep them genuine. These are things that you'll realize as you do these. Always introduce yourself. You're a human being. They're a human being. Treat them with respect. Expect to be treated with respect. But actively listen. You need to give them that courtesy. You have to give them that courtesy because you're there to get that information. It's crucial to you. They don't have to be there. Okay. Once the interview's over, document the data. Take notes during the interview, but don't do it the entire time. Do it to the best that you can so that you remember what they're saying. If you're allowed to, record the interview. If you're not, do the best you can to take notes. After it's done, document the interview. And then after all your interviews are done for the day, check to make sure you don't need to add any more notes, and then evaluate those interviews so that you can go back and evaluate all the interviews after they're all complete. Okay? Now, other techniques, document review. You can review what documentation they have. You can observe current work processes and business processes that are in existence. You can send out questionnaires. You're not going to get back nearly the ones you wanted. Surveys are the same thing. You're not going to get back nearly the number you need, but you're going to get some back. Brainstorming. You can do small group discussions and lead those, or have somebody else lead those and just be in the room. They can be structured or unstructured. Okay. Or you can do sampling, like a population sampling, systematic sampling, selection of every 10th customer for review instead of interviewing all the customers or all the employees or what you need to do. So there are ways to do this statistically to be able to get the right information you need. You can look at any research methodology and they can give this to you on how you can actually build this. So it's good. Numerous agile methodology preparations for how to build questionnaires, build surveys, build interviews. All really, really good. Okay. And then documentation. Once you get down to recording it, do not take time do not take much time. As soon as the interview is over, you need to be documenting it. And I would highly suggest having somebody else in the room making notes as you're performing the interview. And then you wanted to have the simplest, like it says, recording method, and keep it organized and anonymous the best you can. Okay? Keep it in natural language, diagram the information, keep it as understandable as possible. My method has always been keep it simple, so that if, heaven forbid, something happens to me tonight, somebody else gets step into my role tomorrow, and it's understandable, and they can pick right up where I left off and keep going. Here's a graphical representation of requirements for a library management project, and you can see it going all the way down. Shows a library system with 5 top-level functions. So this is a good slide to refer back to as you're looking at documentation for that system. Okay, so next thing that you need to focus on after you've done all of that is a BPMN, or a business process modeling notation for your process diagrams. So business processes can be anything. They can be technical, they can be physical, and that can be, picking up a print job and walking it across the office, and you have to do that every day because you don't have an electronic way to send that print job from one side to the other. That's no joke. That's still considered a business process. Okay, and I know companies that do certain things that way. But you have to take into consideration your business processes, and then you have to diagram those business processes out. And you're going to look at those and say, okay, how can I take these business processes and make them more efficient while I'm working on this system to see what I can reduce down or encompass in my system to be able to make better efficiency in the company. Okay. And in that business process diagram, you're going to then take that up to the next level into a data flow diagram. Okay. You're going to show system stores, processes, and then data transformation. Okay. You're going to include models, and you're going to use Unified Modeling Language, or UML. You're going to have a use case diagram. Now, this is usually represented. It usually represents the interaction between the users and the IS, or my computer systems, right? So when you see a use case diagram, this has something to do with people interacting with a computer system. Just keep that in mind. And then you have a sequence diagram. Okay, it's timing of interactions between objects. So not always in a system or an enterprise system, there is timing that occurs with business processes. This cannot happen until this happens, until this happens. So that sequence diagram shows you what happens when. And these diagrams all have to fit together to give you a good understanding of what's going on. Lastly, you're going to deal with your validation and verification as you're documenting. Okay, this is the end because you're going back through and you're looking at everything you've done and you're saying, okay, is this correct? Do I have my right requirements? Is everything that I've stated correct? It's just I got to give it a look over, and then you're going to bring somebody in. I would highly suggest a person that knows of the project and knows what it's going to be and has worked on the project, looks over it again, then bring in a third person, more than likely somebody from risk or from quality. You're going to have somebody on bigger companies that can look over those, and their job is to look for problems. That's what they do. If they find something, that means that they have justified their job. Now, that's always the joke, but their job is to make sure, number one, you're abiding by all the laws and regulatory oversight for whatever industry you're in. So it's the reason they're there. Have them look, okay? Now, let's talk about tools. There are numerous tools out there to help you with these processes, okay? There's productivity software, okay? There's personal information software. You can use Microsoft tools all the way down as simple as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, database stuff, and not just Access. I've seen people use Access for stuff. You've got Oracle, and you've got you've got Linux, you've got Apache server stuff that you can utilize. Collaboration tools like Teams, graphic modeling tools. There's Microsoft Visio that's also associated with some of this. So you've got so much that you can use to help you in this project diagramming and this process that you can get it done and have so many applications. Okay. System analysis phase includes the requirements modeling, data, and process modeling, and consideration of development strategies. That's your system analysis phase. The objective is simply so you can understand the proposed project, right? You got to know what you're going to do. And that is so that you can find a way to be as helpful and supportive to the business that has hired you, and so that you can create a solid foundation of a system in your design phase. Okay, so that is the system analysis phase, right? The popular team-based approaches, JAD, RAD, and Agile. Okay, so remember, JAD, Joint Application Design, RAD, Rapid Application Design, and then Agile methodology. And Agile was the one we went off on for a long time because it is the most popular in today's industry. Okay. Then we talked about requirements gathering. This is where you're going to spend the majority of the beginnings of your project. You know the rough understanding of this is what my project will do. This is what I'm going to be asked to do. Now I need to do a lot more investigation to understand, okay, now I need to understand all of the ins and outs and all of the little minutiae, I like to say, of how I need to accomplish this correctly. So you're going to do interviews and questionnaires, and you're going to possibly do surveys and observations and numerous other ways to gather as much data as possible. Look at documentation and historical data, and you're going to compile all of that and document it and come up with all of this information. Okay? And then you're going to verify it and validate it. And then you're going to have more people come in and verify it and validate it. Okay? Because you've worked your tush off getting it all designed and written down. And how did you do that? You used tools. What tools? Well, any tool that you can think of to write it, between Microsoft Office and Word and Excel and Visio. Whatever you need to document it up and you feel comfortable with doing, you did. And that's when you bring in your outside parties to verify and validate it. Okay? I threw a lot of information at you today. Please feel free to review all of that in your chapter. Okay? As we move forward, we're going to take the Agile method and a lot of what we've referenced here today and move it into hands-on stuff for our next few modules. So you're going to learn how to do some of these diagrams. You're going to learn how to do writing up some interviews. You're going to talk to you may even write up a questionnaire. So be prepared to really spend some time thinking about those. So again, I'm available anytime. If you need me for anything, shape, or form, please text me or call me on my cell phone. If you email me, I do not live in San Angelo. I have moved away. So I will do my best to email you back, but I cannot guarantee it will be within the window that is normally issued by Angelo State University. I'm sorry. That's why I give you my cell phone number and ask that you use that as the primary method of communication. Okay? So please reach out to me if you have any problems. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful night.